Hey, this is The Cause, Anthony Gargano. Thanks for checking out the podcast on 97.5 The Fanatic.
97.5 The Fanatic.
Ready?
I was born ready.
I can honestly say that's the best news I've heard all day.
Joe Torre Show.
Kind of reminded me of a dark, gothic Neil Diamond.
That's like exactly what I'm going for.
This is the Joe Torre Show.
What show are you listening to?
Joe Torre Show.
I'm trying to be patient, but you're making it incredibly difficult.
I can say big loud things. I can be demonstrative.
Can we just end this already?
Now it's time. The Joe Torre Show.
What's going on, Philadelphia? Look, I know that there are more significant things, let's say, that we could get worked up about or that we could be angry or upset about when it comes to COVID-19 and whatever the variant of the day is and its impact that it makes on our day-to-day lives, right? I mean, worst case, you or someone that you know might have lost somebody permanently due to the virus and circumstances surrounding it. I mean, absolute best case scenario, your work life has been affected in some way by what's been going on. And obviously, it can make an impact on things at home, family, friends, relationships, holiday plans. Things have been shaken up a significant amount in the last 2 years. And understanding all of that, there's still a special level of rage and anger that I save for when COVID-19 or whatever it is at the whatever we call it at the current time. I think it's Omicron right now. Whatever it is at the current moment interferes with my escape from everyday life. You know, when it comes down to it, we've all had hard days at work. We've gotten into fights with our partners. We've had hard days with the kids. Whatever it is, school. Something doesn't work on the house. I found out that when I was aerating my lawn, my sprinkler system was nice and punctured, so now I'm trying to work my way through that, right? No matter what's going on, we've always been able to, right around 7 o'clock or 1 o'clock on Sundays or whatever it is, flip on the game and for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, just be able to put it aside and get away from it for a while. Your punctured sprinkler system, that sounds like a problem for future Joe. The game is on. Okay. Now, just like, in the last 18 months, we run the risk now of seeing things affected in a profound way due to the virus and what's going on with COVID-19, the new variant, how it's spreading and how it's affecting teams generally. Fortunately, last year didn't really impact the Eagles in any kind of profound way. Yes, we saw Doug Peterson test positive. We saw various players over the course of the season in and out of the protocols. But there was nothing that was so monumental an impact as moving or postponing a game. Didn't see the Eagles' schedule reshuffled. Now, I felt like the canary in the coal mine because I was screaming and whining and complaining about how the league was incredibly inconsistent and how it was dishing things out. D-Lina made fun of me because I pointed out that whatever the Denver Broncos want doesn't matter. What's that? You don't have enough quarterbacks to play? Well, good luck. And if the Baltimore Ravens have anything less than a perfectly healthy full squad, then games will be moved, teams will be moved. It doesn't really matter what will happen. Whatever the Ravens want, it'll go. And people laughed at me, right? And it's easy to do that when it doesn't necessarily affect you on the day-to-day basis. But that fast forwards us here to today. And the fact that the Eagles' season, the rest of their season, is in jeopardy because of the NFL's stupid approach to the way that they're handling COVID-19 and game postponements. Now, it truly does not matter to me in terms of player vaccinations, non-vaccinations, testing, not testing. These are all things that get negotiated between the players' union and the league. I'm not here to legislate those things. They've worked out what they're going to work out. No, the problem that I have is that because the Washington football team is having a massive COVID outbreak, somehow the Eagles are not having a massive COVID outbreak. My opinion was way back then when I was complaining about the different treatment of the Broncos and the Ravens, and it continues to be today, that things happen. Injuries, accidents, sickness, suspensions, whatever it is, things happen. Sunday rolls around. Your game time is on Sunday. If you're ready to go, you go. If you're not ready to go, you forfeit. Pretty cut and dry. Nothing has changed. And that's why I'm so frustrated by the way that this has gone on with the Washington football team, because now, and Tom Alvarez, my producer, you have to fact check me on this math. I'm pretty sure the Eagles now have to play 3 games in 13 days. And if you've watched any kind of offensive line play, I've tried to get better at watching offensive line play as more and more of my friends who are analysts in the business happen to have played offensive line. I'm trying to get better about that. These guys are going through 3 freaking afternoons of car wrecks in a 13-day span. Not enough time to properly recover. Not enough time to properly even prepare for the next game in a lot of cases. Oh, and by the way, this game gets postponed and moved to Tuesday, and like 8,000 people end up being activated by Washington today, so they would have been ready for tomorrow anyway. Here's my problem. You can have empathy for people in other situations. If you're an Eagles fan or an Eagles coach or a member of the Eagles, like the players, you can look over there and say, man, it stinks that Washington's going through it. But you're not. You've followed your protocols. You've been careful. You've made sacrifices. You've done all of the things that you need to do in order to keep you and your squad eligible to play the game. The league comes out and makes totally vacuous, ridiculous, empty statements about how, we're not just going to move games because teams don't have position groups available. That's ridiculous. Look, you have to be ready to play. You have to be ready to go. And then you see the tweets, the reports, the leaks. NFL under pressure to move games. Under pressure from whom exactly would that be? The owners who their teams aren't going to be ready to play on Sundays? Is it you think it's the Eagles? Do you really think that the Eagles wouldn't want to have a Washington squad come into the link that does not have enough players to play and lose by 60? And the fans are all doing the wave from the first quarter on all the way through? You think the Eagles don't want to see Washington get stomped coming into their building? It's not them. The issue that I have with this is that it was already laid out. And I didn't like the way that the league came out and made all of these proclamations after the fact that this is how it was going to be for this year. But at the very least, they addressed it. At least they did something. What happened last year was unacceptable. But I'll give you a small pass, just a small one, because even though there should have been, there wasn't a plan in place for what happens when one team is hit particularly hard and another one's not. Or what if one team doesn't have any wide receivers? What if one team doesn't have any quarterbacks? They should have planned that out, but they didn't. So you get a small pass from me for last year. This year, though, it's not like anything's new. One of the biggest upsets of this COVID-19 pandemic is how Skype has gotten completely punked. Because none of us knew what Zoom was 24 months ago. Not even a clue. Man, I thought about that this morning. I said, if I could go back in time, what would I do? Easy. Put all of it in Zoom. Everything is in Zoom if I could go back in time. Skype, this is your moment. This is what you've been waiting for. And boom! The up-and-comer comes in and takes the crown. This is what the NFL should have been planning for. They already knew this. They knew what it looked like last year. They had the dry run. The reason that it's inexcusable in the NFL is because they had other leagues take the beach. You had the NBA figure it out first. You had the NHL trying to does a bubble work for the whole season? Is it only certain teams playing each other? You had every other league being your guinea pigs. So by the time the fall rolled around, you were ready to go with your start and your plans and things like that. So now, after their Tuesday, and here's the other thing. It's not even a Tuesday at like 10 a.m. If they played Tuesday at 10 a.m., I'd be upset, but I wouldn't be as upset as I am about them playing Tuesday at 7 p.m. Then they get to play their Week 16 game against the New York Giants on 4 days rest. Yep. This was from the league in July. Every club is obligated under the Constitution and bylaws to have its team ready to play at the scheduled time and place. A failure to do so is deemed conduct detrimental. There's no right to postpone a game. Postponements will only occur if required by government authorities, medical experts, or, at the commissioner's discretion. Well, basically what the NFL memo that they sent out yesterday to all the teams said was that the emergence of the Omicron variant is precisely the kind of change that warrants a flexible response and therefore falls under the commissioner's discretion. Here's my beef. I'm trying to put myself in the other boat. If I am a Washington football team player or fan or coach or executive, would I prefer that there's a postponement? Clearly. If my team's not ready to go, clearly I'd prefer that there's a postponement. However, if the league comes back to me and says, no, there will be no postponement, and points to what they wrote in July about how this was going to be handled, then what leg do I even have to stand on to complain? Where does it come from? My question for you, and this is what I want to get into this afternoon, is how would you like to see these things handled? Because for some people, there might be an element of it's important to keep people safe here. And I think that is true. Like, that's obviously, you talk about things being bigger than sports. People's safety is obviously bigger than sports. I don't know, based on the data and the kind of players, or I should say people who are at risk, when you think about it, coming from the players who are mostly on the younger side and generally speaking, the fittest people on the planet. I don't know how that factors in. But just for you, how would you like to see this handled? Would you like to see any kind of postponement policy? Any kind, like, where's the line? How does it get determined? Or, in order to maintain consistency, that's just where I've been. I've said the game time is the game time. And you are ready to go at the game time, or you're not. And if you're not bad people. You're not dirty. You're not necessarily irresponsible. You're not any of those things. You're just not ready to go on game day. When the Cleveland Browns had MRSA going through their locker room, don't you think they could take like 2 weeks off to get like everything cleaned and settled down there? Or when Jason Kelsey's undergoing, all kinds of medical attention just to get himself functional out on the field, don't you think that he could use like a couple of extra days? I don't know why the league is treating this specific instance so differently when they wouldn't otherwise. (610-632-0975) your phone number. Plus, the other thing is, and this is not to necessarily draw a one-to-one comparison between the two situations, but some of the league's language has basically been, and this is in the same like July memo, like if you're not going to be vaccinated as a player, or I think it's mostly players because I think all the coaches had to be vaccinated. If you're not going to be vaccinated, then you're basically on your own. You're basically on your own for everything because it's a choice that you're making. And especially if there is an outbreak because of an unvaccinated player, then you're stuck because that's your choice. Which, by the way, early reports indicate that might be the case with Washington, why the outbreak happened. There was a report that one player was aggressively anti-vaccine and perhaps patient zero for this large outbreak that's resulted in the Eagles game being moved. But if we're talking about personal choices, what about other people who have made questionable personal choices? Deshaun Watson or Antonio Brown and these other, I'm sure that their owners and their executives would prefer to say, hey, given the fact that this is a fluid situation and it's due to their choice, can we like hold back for a little while and wait and see what happens to these guys before we play any more games? Clearly not the same as a health situation, but it just goes to illustrate the absurdity that the league has not had this handled and under control, and the spinelessness of some people in charge to not follow through on the rules that you set out to cover yourself to begin with. Just strikes me as incredibly frustrating. And now, look, it doesn't make a difference to me one lick whether this is a rebuild season for the Eagles, if they're supposed to be bad, good, playoffs, no playoffs, whatever. They are a competitive team right now playing a stretch of division games that will literally determine whether they make the postseason or not. And by the way, for what it's worth, winnable games, all. Washington, New York, Washington, Dallas when they might not be playing for anything. The Eagles could go 4-0 down the stretch. Make the playoffs, and then who knows what happens after that. And yet, now they're going to be asked to play on December 21st, December 26th, and January 2nd. Good luck. 610-632-0975 is your phone number to join the conversation. How should this be handled? Here's what I'll say. And just to reiterate, my position's not that different from where it was at the beginning, which is to say games don't get moved. The games are where they are. And if you're not ready to go, then you're not ready to go and you forfeit, period. That kind of lines up with what the NFL said in July about COVID. What they said about here's the timely article from NFL.com when it came out, which was July 22nd of 2021. Basically says that if a game can't be rescheduled during the 18-week schedule due to a COVID-19 outbreak among unvaccinated players, the team with the outbreak will forfeit and be credited with the loss. Obviously, this game was technically able to be rescheduled. I don't know what that means. Where's the cutoff? Could they have played on Friday? Like, well, you have Saturday to get ready for Sunday's game. I don't know what the big problem is. They're saying that they weren't going to add a 19th week to accommodate games that can't be rescheduled. And really, it ends up not being a shot at teams who are flaunting the protocols. And I mean, if you think, or you just take a little walk down Google Lane, you don't have to look that hard to find some teams and players that have been flaunting COVID protocols since day one. But no, it was about pressuring owners, teams, coaches, players, everyone to get vaccinated because that's what the object was at the time. saying, yeah, we're not going to mandate vaccinations. We're just going to make life incredibly difficult for non-vaccinated players, and the penalties to the teams will be more severe for unvaccinated players. That's all well and good. Especially what we just said with the Eagles, everybody kind of executing the game plan. Everybody kind of doing what they're supposed to do in order to keep the team eligible to play, healthy enough to play, ready to report for kickoff on Sunday. They're trying to minimize the burden on opposing coaches and clubs. If a club cannot play to a COVID-19 spike in vaccinated individuals, which is the difference, will attempt to minimize the competitive and economic burden on both participating teams. What should the league do? Stick to what you said you were going to do. You have the paper laid out there. You have the rules established. People can like them or not like them, but at least you're not making things up on the spot. Again. Actually, you know what? It feels like they kind of are. And as a result, the Eagles are pretty heavily screwed. And by the way, we've been talking about this strictly from a football perspective. But I mean this. I'm not saying this to be glib. I am truly sorry if you had plans with friends, loved ones, kids, whatever, to go see the game at the Link on Sunday. I am truly sorry for you. I know how difficult it is, especially if you're not a season ticket holder, to get all of the scheduling planned out. It's not a small expense, all of those things. Well, I hope that you're available on Tuesday at 7 p.m. That's basically what the league is saying to you. Hopefully there's some way to make it right for you guys. 610-632-0975 is your phone number to join the conversation. COVID rearing its ugly head once again in the pro sports leagues. We're going to take a look around the rest of the leagues because it's already impacting things at the college levels, the pro levels as well. All kinds of different things going on with cancellations, postponements, pauses, all those sorts of things. And we'll see where this thing is headed. 610-632-0975. It's Joe Torti rolling on until 6:30 right here on 97.5 The Fanatic.
97.5 The Fanatic. The Fanatic.
Eagles get hosed by the NFL COVID-19 rescheduling. You don't even call it a policy because it's kind of a one-off decision here. At least the Washington football team players and coaches have the decency to acknowledge that obviously it's a benefit for them and it's not a benefit for the Eagles. Saw Ron Rivera and Jonathan Allen both kind of make statements to that effect, saying that if they were, Philadelphia Eagles fans or players or coaches, that they might feel a different way, but that everybody's in a much better headspace today than they were yesterday. Let's go to Mo in Philly next on 97.5 The Fanatic. What's going on, Mo?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You bet.
So look, I want to clarify. Well, I'll start off by saying absolutely puts Philly at a disadvantage, puts the Eagles at a competitive disadvantage. And I think it highlights that the NFL doesn't really care about player safety at all. Because if you got a team playing 3 games in however many days, 15 days, right, that's not safe.
It's not
that's
safe.
Just them
You're right, Mo.
looking out for the bottom line and ensuring their TV revenue and everything else. Having said that, you keep citing the policy, which refers to a spike in unvaccinated players, right? That you're saying they're going against their own policy because they had this policy they created in July that was about a spike in unvaccinated players, which, as you said, was basically to incentivize teams to get vaccinated. Unless you have information that I haven't seen anywhere, the majority of the players who have tested positive for Washington are vaccinated. Right?
I believe that is true, but Mo, what I've seen is that there's a player, I don't think it's out there, so it's okay, Montez Sweat,
Sure.
is not vaccinated, and it is speculated that he is patient 0.
Yeah, he's not vaccinated. He also, I think, has been out with the protocol for, much
since
longer.
early December. Yeah,
early December. And from what I read, has not been in the building at all during that time. So I think that you may or may not have an issue there. Absolutely, he's the unvaccinated guy. But again, you're citing a policy about unvaccinated players to say that the NFL is being hypocritical in that regard. And right after that, you read that if there was a spike in vaccinated players, that they would do their best, right, to make it economically and competitively fair.
Sure.
Whatever that means, right? It's obviously it's a total snafu, right? I mean, everything's screwed up. But I don't think that it's as clear cut as you saying, oh, they are just pure hypocrites going against their own policy, because the policy they have about vaccinated versus unvaccinated players are very different. You're right. They're making things up on the fly. Like, the NFL does not exist in a vacuum. As a society, we're still making things up on the fly. This Omicron virus popped up, and all of a sudden everybody who's vaccinated is testing positive, and all this stuff that we knew 6 weeks ago is no longer applicable today. So as much as it is a competitive disadvantage for the Eagles, I don't honestly see how they do it a different way. Like, you can't roll a team out there with 35 players. That's a player safety issue as well.
Sure.
So I think it's just one of those things where it sucks, and COVID sucks, and it's just another offshoot of everything having sucked the last year and a half.
Yeah. Well, so Mo, you don't see any merit in, like, one of the statements that they made in July, besides the vaccinated unvaccinated thing, was that basically every team has to have their team ready to play. There's no right to postpone a game except at the commissioner's discretion. You don't think that that's kind of vague?
I think it's very vague. I think it was probably intentionally vague because they didn't know what was coming down the line. And
Sure.
I think what we're seeing right now is, this is the commissioner's discretion. This is them saying, well, if we had known in July that it would be possible to have 20 vaccinated players on a team testing positive, we would have factored that in. But I mean, that wasn't on anyone's radar at the time, right?
Sure. Yeah, we're learning new stuff every day, Mo. Good to talk to you, man. Appreciate you listening. Because I'm curious. I'm just curious as to what the policies that you guys would like to see implemented would be. I agree. You can't have a team fielding 35 players, but they wouldn't. I mean, you've only got, I think in 2021 you only have 40 active on game day. I think I have to double check that, how many inactives they have for the COVID-19 affected seasons last year and this year. I have to check how many actives there are on game day. But I mean, you've got an expanded practice squad. You've got the option to sign street free agents, and I know that there are testing protocols and policies and things you have to go through. I certainly wouldn't be championing Washington sending 35 players to the field. But I do think that there would be ways that if you forced them to answer the bell, basically, on Sunday, that they're not going to bring 35 guys. They'll have enough bodies in order to make it happen. We've seen it before. Washington's last game, they had like their third string defensive ends playing as starters, and they still had people to go behind them. There's a lot of football players in the world. Not everybody makes the NFL. It's an incredibly small number, but there would be people I would anticipate who would jump at an opportunity like this. Does it take time to get everybody up to speed? Would it be fun for TV? Clearly not. But it does, as Mo said, it sucks. It sucks more for the Eagles because this isn't affecting them. If it's both teams that have 30 people or whatever in the protocols, then obviously you have a different conversation. It rings different to me when one team's ready to go and one team's not. Derek is next in Northeast Philly. What's up, Derek?
Yeah, hey, Joe. It's different now hearing you in that 6 to 10 a.m. weekend window.
Yeah. Welcome to the afternoons. What's going on, Derek?
Quick Sixers question, if I may, before I circle back to the Eagles and the situation. Why is tomorrow night against the Zion Williamson-less Pelicans, which makes the less alluring of a game,
Sure.
actually, why is that an 8 p.m. start? Was that to accommodate the fact there was an Eagles home game originally and the traffic situation?
It's a good question. I saw that it had been moved to 7 earlier today.
They finally did make a move. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's been moved up to 7 o'clock.
That makes sense. There's normally Sunday home games around the league are generally like 5:30, 6:30 anyway.
Sure, yeah.
I bet that was originally at 8 o'clock because of clearing out the traffic from an Eagles home.
Would make
game.
sense. That would make sense.
And I know how you do football play-by-play, so if I could ask you these questions. I know what under center is. We all know what shotgun is. We saw Jalen Hurts in the shotgun way too much early in the season. But when announcers use the phraseology, he's in the pistol, or it's pistol formation, I'm sorry, I still don't understand. What is that? What does that mean? And do the Eagles actually do it with any of their quarterbacks?
They do, actually. So a coach would be able to explain it much more technically than I'm about to. But basically, if you have a quarterback in the shotgun, have him take one step forward and put the running back behind him, he's in the pistol.
So that's a developing sort of thing as you're calling a game. You see it, and it just kind of comes out of announcers' mouths as like an extra thing to say.
Well, yeah, it became something that we really wanted to look at, Derek, as like Colin Kaepernick was coming up in Nevada, and it happened before that, but Nevada really put it on the map, and that was like one of their base formations was, and talking about it, and the coach and Chris Peterson and all those guys were talking about it being the pistol instead of the shotgun. It's a smaller drop back. So that's where it came from. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's been around for like 30 years in the normal lexicon. It's a pretty recent development.
So an empty backfield set is never pistol. It has to be with some kind of setbacks, and you see how the quarterback sets up.
And I think it could be, Derek, if the quarterback is still at that like pistol depth. If he's like a step up from the normal like shotgun snap depth.
Do we do it with Jalen Hurts? I mean, I've never noticed, honestly.
Yep. Yes, we have. And part of it is when, and thanks for the phone call, Derek, appreciate it. Part of it is when they want to get the ball into Hurts' hands in particular so that the zone read starts a half a beat sooner, or that he can just get the ball for a quarterback run or a quarterback bam or something like that and just go. So, yes, the Eagles definitely have used the pistol since Jalen Hurts is here, but they also used it with Carson Wentz as well. 610-632-0975 is your phone number to join the conversation. Yeah, there you go. Chris Alt, not Chris Peterson. Chris Alt was the head coach at Nevada, and that's kind of where it happens. Oftentimes you have the running back behind the quarterback in the pistol, but you can do it in an empty backfield, especially utilized when the quarterback's able to run the ball. Like I said, a football coach would be able to talk through it much more technically than I would, but that is the pistol conversation. See, these are the things that I miss. I love calls like that from Derek. When we're talking about the world falling apart, our pets' heads are falling off, COVID-19's everywhere. You know, we're talking about did game times get moved because of traffic, and what's the deal with the pistol? It's good stuff, Tom.
Nice little change of pace, yeah.
Absolutely.
Did not tell me that's what the phone call was going to be about, so
not a problem.
On my toes.
Not a problem, even a little bit. 610-632-0975 is your phone number. Top of board. Okay, so we did see that obviously we've been talking about what the NFL is doing with respect to their COVID protocols, moving games, what does work, what doesn't. The NHL is also having some stuff going on, as is the NCAA. So basically, to put a bow on the NFL, in addition to the Eagles game, Saturday's game between the Browns and Raiders gets pushed to Monday. And the Seahawks-Rams game will be played like the Philadelphia game on Tuesday. Both of those are 7 o'clock kicks, rather. You're seeing all kinds of stuff in NCAA men's basketball. There have been more than a dozen games canceled or postponed in recent days. UCLA is having a big problem. Duke and Loyola got canceled. So there you go. Now Duke's playing Elon. They were originally supposed to play Loyola. Then they rescheduled for Cleveland State. And then Cleveland State, I guess, was having some issues with positive test results. Now they're playing the Phoenix of Elon. Seton Hall forfeited their Big East Conference game against St. John's. Technically, I guess what they're doing is the forfeit counts as a conference loss. It somehow doesn't affect Seton Hall's overall number of losses. Women's basketball, you saw Kentucky against Morgan State postponed. Miami forfeiting their game against Duke. Colorado and Florida are shutting down through December 27th in the NHL with concern for their number of positive test cases in the last 2 days. The Flames shutting down through the 26th. And Tom, you told me that it's Nashville and Boston that are shutting down through Christmas as well.
Yes, correct.
So there's plenty of action so far in those areas. I have been called both a pessimist and an optimist, which I take as a compliment. So that means that I think that I'm kind of a realist. I would anticipate a shutdown of some sort coming in the next little bit here. Not necessarily today or tomorrow. If you're seeing postponements, cancellations, forfeitures, things like that, if you're already seeing leagues and sports shifting when and where and how or whether games are going to be played on a week-by-week basis, it's only a matter of time till the snowball grows, and then eventually you're seeing leagues or teams or whoever take pauses in a more official capacity. I would anticipate that that's not far behind here, just given the way that things have played out. I don't know what the best answer is. So college football is an example. College football is in a tough spot. You've got a ton of bowl games coming up that mean a lot of TV money, things like that. In addition to the bowl games, you've also got the ones that count, the college football playoff, national championship, those sorts of things. You've got a little bit of a breather until then. Like a lot of the more meaningful games are occurring, New Year's Day, like that whole week, a couple days before. They could shut everything down in college football-wise and try to say, all right, we're going to minimize the impact that this could potentially have there. Hockey, you're in the thick of the season now. There's just as much season in front of you as behind you. The NBA, not dissimilar. And the NFL, rather, there are 4 weeks left or 4 games left for most teams. And you're talking about teams that are in playoff races. I don't know what you do if you're the NFL. These other leagues, you can stand a little bit of a pause and just push things a little bit further toward the summer. I don't know what the NFL is going to do here. The Nets have 9 players in their health and safety protocols, including Kevin Durant and the just added in a part-time capacity Kyrie Irving. Once again, for a player to be cleared from their protocols, it's 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. So that is what the Nets are going to be working on here. We talked about Irving being unvaccinated and New York having a vaccine mandate in the city. Irving will only be playing Brooklyn's road games in cities that don't have similar rules. So that would be 24 games left on the Nets schedule that he'd be available to play. It's a mess. It is truly a mess. And it's very reminiscent of how things were before the big sports shutdown. And it does make me wonder whether I'd be very surprised if there was a blanket shutdown across all sports. But I do think that there will be sports here and there, or leagues or teams or whoever it is, that just say that it's not in their best interest to continue and that they'll stop. I don't know how long. I don't know if it'll be bag the season. I don't know if it'll be put things on pause. There will be obvious financial ramifications to it, not just from a ticketing and TV perspective, but also, you've got marketing things to fulfill. How are you going to compensate fans who might have bought tickets? Are you going to give them their money back? Like, there's all kinds of things that we've, unfortunately, spent a lot of time getting really good at navigating logistically here. And I would anticipate that that's coming at some point here in the near future. How do you handle it? What do you do? What is the approach here? 610-632-0975. The Predators and Bruins shut down through Christmas. The Predators have 8 players, Nashville, of the NHL, and several coaches who are in the protocols. And the Bruins also have 8. Additionally, the Canucks and Maple Leafs, that's north of the border, had their next 2 games postponed. They were supposed to play each other Saturday, but a sixth member of the Canucks tested positive Saturday morning, according to ESPN. And the Leafs have 4 players in the protocols. The NHL has, not unlike the NBA with Toronto, a different set of issues to weigh, the repercussions of players and staff crossing the U.S. and Canada border, and what that looks like and how those players and coaches are handled. The league announced earlier today some newly enhanced COVID-19 protocols, the NHL did, including daily testing, and anyone who comes back positive while traveling is subject to obey quarantine mandates. At this point, a league-wide shutdown would be, quote, the last resort if there's a sense that the league cannot contain the COVID-19 spread. The hope is to continue postponements on a case-by-case basis until Christmas break begins on Thursday. So that last paragraph is kind of the money paragraph. And Tom, as a hockey fan, when you hear that and you read that, what does that bring up for you? Like, what do you think that means as it relates to how the NHL is kind of handling this thing?
I mean, I think every sport, and specifically NHL, I think that's all their last resort, because the big thing is none of these sports want to lose money, and they're going to lose a ton of money. And when it comes with the scheduling, the NHL, I guess, has a little bit of leeway because there's nothing huge coming up. But when you mentioned it, bowl games in college, NFL playoff push, NBA games for Christmas, those are huge money making. That's a huge money making day. So I think that's what every single sport wants, is that to be the last resort. Unfortunately, they might not have a choice when it comes down to it. If you're having all these and you have half the teams continuing to test positive and being in protocols, you can't morally have these teams be sent out there and be traveling like that.
And you hit on one of the issues, Tom, is that it's not just one team having a huge outbreak. It's not just one or two teams having a huge outbreak of positive tests and things like that. It's seeming like more and more teams across sports are having more profound, pervasive outbreaks in their locker room. It is not something as easy as, all right, well, shut this team down, shut that team down. You're seeing more and more teams. Like you ran into, we just talked about the Canucks and the Maple Leafs it was supposed to play each other, and they're both going through it. So it only took a matter of time until that ended up being one of the considerations that you had to make as you were trying to figure out whether the league was going to put the game on or not. And as you said, Tom, obviously so many money-making opportunities right in front of these leagues and commissioners and players. Nobody wants to leave that on the table, but it might be sneaking up on getting out of their hands here. Roger Goodell talking about the flexible response. That's what we were talking about with the Omicron memo. This is what Goodell wrote in that memo. From the outset of the coronavirus pandemic, our focus has been to play our games in a safe and responsible way, consistent with the best available medical and public health advice based on protocols jointly developed and implemented with the Players Association. Blah, 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 blah. A key element of our success has been our commitment to working with the union and medical experts to make needed adjustments in response to changing conditions. The emergence of the Omicron variant is precisely the kind of change that warrants a flexible response. Decisions to reschedule or cancel games remaining on the schedule will be made, quote, in accordance with the principles outlined by Goodell in a memo sent in July. They're going to make every effort to play the full schedule within the current 18 weeks. And Roger Goodell did say on Friday that the decisions to postpone the 3 games were based on medical advice. What does that mean? I'm not trying to be combative here. I'm just asking, what does that mean? What does based on medical advice mean? 610-632-0975. The reason that I'm asking is because we're seeing an Omicron outbreak here. We're seeing a lot of players testing positive. Are we seeing players going to the hospital? Are we seeing them getting sick? What's the medical advice that Roger Goodell is getting that says that the 3 games, the postponement decision was based on medical advice? Because the skeptic in me, and those who've been listening for a long time know that I'm skeptical about just about everything, would say that it doesn't make any sense that it's medically sound to not play the game on Sunday, but that everything's going to be good to go by Tuesday. So I'm going to need a little bit more clarity on what the medical advice look like. Because if things are going to lighten up for COVID by Tuesday, that's information that would be useful for me and for a lot of other people to know. 610-632-0975. It's Joe Torti rolling on until 6:30 right here on The Fanatic.